Welcome back to the silliest Silksong challenge ever seen on YouTube, the Pogo only challenge. This video is my experience in Act 2 of Silksong while doing this challenge, so make sure to check out the Act 1 video first if you haven't seen it yet. The rules of the challenge are fully explained there, but for the most part, it is what it sounds like. I can only attack enemies by pogoing them. No more wasting time, let's get straight into it. Riding the high of easily giving the last judge her final judgment, we sprint straight through to the Grand Gate. I haven't directly mentioned it until now, but if you have been paying attention, you'll realize that I've been collecting mask and silk upgrades throughout the playthrough. Especially in a challenge like this, as much health as possible can make the difference between success and failure. Since I entered Act 2 through the last judge, I'll have to enter the Citadel through the Underworks. And don't let the name confuse you. The Underworks are nothing like Undertale. This place is not fun at all. Every aspect that has this challenge at its most annoying can be found right here. We got buzzsaws that would make the Pale King blush. Tight corridors that make pogoing enemies much harder. Annoying, hard to hit flying enemies. And of course, even more buzzsaws. After some deaths, I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna die here and my family will miss me. An enemy gauntlet or two. I need you to die. Thank you. And some more deaths. Until like, oh my god, if I actually die to that. Yo, what? What are you doing? Oh my god. I can finally leave the Underworks and enter the Citadel proper, when I'm greeted with a not so warm welcome from Lace and her grandmother. The Citadel is a seriously huge area within itself, containing multiple sub-areas that are all pretty big themselves, so it can feel pretty overwhelming. Luckily, I've been playing a lot more Silksong than is probably healthy for a normal person, so I already know an efficient path forward. Should I really call that lucky? At least at the beginning here, I'm going to be more or less following the any % speedrun route for this section of the game. I've watched a lot of the Silksong speedrunning content from other YouTubers, and I've even gotten some hands-on practice with the 5-hour speedrun achievement in the game as well. In the speedrun, the first thing you do in Act 2 is head straight to the Cogwork Dancers. So, that's the first stop. This pair of Robo-Homos are actually really one of my favorite bosses in the game. The fight itself gives me strong Mantis Lords vibes as they attack in tandem with each other, and especially in the third phase as they attack one after another the same way the Mantis Lords do. I don't quite get the fight on my first try, which kind of surprised me because I usually really find the fight quite easy, but it's not too long before the pair is taken down. Actually so sad. Oh my god, dude, that's so sad. It's here that we're assigned the main objective of Act 2. Explore each area, visit the ancient keepers who pass down 3 parts to a sacred melody, and learn said melody to progress through to the climax of the game. Why did the Legend of Zelda copy Silksong? Anyway, continuing on with the speedrun route, we take a path through the Cogwork core to enter the Whispering Vaults. This area does contain the first piece of the threefold melody that we need to collect, but that isn't the main objective for now. Trobio is another fan favorite boss, and all things considered, he's a pretty fun fight in a normal playthrough. This isn't a normal playthrough though, so the question is, how is he for Pogo only? The answer is he's pretty damn tough. He's another very agile boss, never sitting still for too long, so it's hard to find the right time to get attacks in. His attacks also take up a huge portion of the screen all at once, so it's a lot harder to find opportunities to get in punishes. His tornado attack, which is actually countered pretty well by Pogos, can also be dangerous because it's so easy just to make a small mistake, a small misinput, and dive right into his attack. At least I've got this verified banger to listen to during these attempts against the boss. Nice. There we go. Okay, this boss, you gave me a lot more fucking trouble than you were worth, Trobio. GG's, though. GG's. GG's. With Trobio defeated, we can follow the path that he was guarding, which leads back into the underworks. Oh, brother. Thankfully, we won't be here that long, as that main objective I mentioned earlier is pretty much the only thing we need from here right now. A very cool movement tool that we all know and love, the claw shot. The claw line. Okay, no more Zelda jokes, I swear. The claw line is a very cool tool, and it's actually really great for normal combat, but of course that won't matter for this challenge. We just need it for all of the areas it opens up access to in the game. By now, we're not really in the early game of Act 2 anymore, so it's finally time to deviate from the speedrunning route. I collect the Sacred Cylinder and do a more thorough exploration of the Whispering Vaults, ending off with learning the first part of the song, the Vault Keeper's Melody. For the past 8 hours or so of gameplay in this challenge, I've spent effectively the whole time just using the Hunter's Crest. Now it's finally time to change that with the Architect's Crest. This crest has a normal heal, thank God, and a pretty unique pogo. It's the only pogo that has a charged variant with greater range and damage. This adds a lot of complexity to using it. I can always go for the standard hit when I need to, but if an enemy is slightly out of range, I can use the charged variant to close the gap. The slower nature of the attack allows me to stall in the air a little bit, which can also be used to time out my attacks. Of course, this slower speed has its own drawbacks as well. And while both crests do have a diagonal pogo, the angle on the Architect is quite a bit more shallow, throwing off my aim just enough to miss attacks. At the end of the day, I'd say that the crest of the Hunter is probably easier to use, but I'm committed to sticking with the crest of the Architect for at least a little while. Both the novelty of having a charged pogo for some extra options in combat, plus the fact that I just want to switch it up from what I've been using this whole time, are the two main reasons for this decision. Now, the claw line does open up a lot of the game, but it doesn't open up everything. For that, I'll need the Fey Down Cloak, which, now that I do have the claw line, I actually can get to. Mount Fey brings up an interesting question for this challenge. In fact, one of the rules for this challenge only exists because of this area. Rule 4 states that using the harpoon on enemies during platforming sections is allowed. So obviously, I'm gonna be using it so I can progress. It is still hitting enemies without the pogo, but as far as I'm aware, it's impossible to complete Mount Fey without hitting enemies at all. So in the interest of the playthrough, I'm gonna allow it. It's not too long before both the double jump and a fuzzy new friend for Hornet are acquired. With all this movement, we really could go anywhere. I do need to make a quick stop back to the Underworks to pick up something I missed. The Delver's Drill is the only red tool weapon that is itself a pogo, so it passes the entrance exam for this challenge. Now this might seem an odd choice for where to go next, but the Wisp Thicket has a tool that completely changes the game for this challenge. It's acquired by defeating the boss of the area, the Father of the Flame, which even in a normal playthrough can only be beaten with pogos. So surely, for this challenge, it shouldn't be a problem. At the very least, it doesn't. That would be... There we go, bro. Get out of here. Not a problem. Just like I said. Jesus. And what I get for this fight? A charm that actually might be the key to everything in this challenge. All right, let me explain what I mean when I say that. The Wisp-Fire Lantern is basically Silksong's equivalent to the Glowing Womb charm from Hollow Knight. It's a blue tool that will passively spend Silk to summon in a friendly Wisp that will fly into enemies and damage them, and that includes Pogo immune enemies. The real thing that makes this loophole work so well is the passive Silk regeneration that Hornet has. I don't need to hit enemies to generate the Silk that's used by the tool, so as long as I can just dodge throughout the whole fight, I can now take on any enemy gauntlet or boss that has Pogo immune enemies. So obviously, this is a loophole to the rules of the challenge. I definitely am not attacking these enemies with normal hits, so it's not really breaking the rules. But yeah, clearly I am damaging them with other means than a Pogo attack. If all enemies that were Pogo immune were optional, I'd probably just say that those enemies aren't killable and just have to skip over them. If Pogo immune enemies were all found in optional encounters, I'd probably just say that those are off the table and I just have to skip them. However, there are places, such as this gauntlet or the Forge Brothers boss, that are required for beating all 3 acts. And I'd rather use this loophole to progress than just call the challenge a failure. But hey, if you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. In the end, I decide to only use this method when I'm fighting Pogo immune enemies and never just to help out in combat in general, and I think that's a pretty good middle ground. But thanks to the help of the strategy, the Forge Daughter and the rest of the Deep Docks are now unlocked, and you know what that means. It's Flint Slate time, baby! I was expecting to get this tool like 8 hours ago, so it's been long overdue. I really was not anticipating all the roadblocks that would be in the way before being able to access it. My plan was to head to the far fields next, as there are plenty of things there for me to grab with the new upgrades I've gotten since Act 1. But a certain beastfly had some other ideas. The Savage Beastfly was already one of the tougher bosses during its first encounter. Definitely not the hardest in the challenge, but among the harder ones. The second fight with him though, literally exponentially harder. I did not do myself any favors by stubbornly refusing to switch off of the Architect's Crest. There's no walls, the floors are breakable, and he summons in flying ranged ads. All of this just makes the fight so much harder, even if it feels like it really shouldn't be. Here's a solid 50 minutes worth of deaths, condensed into just 2 seconds. You're welcome. Yes! Fuck you! Fuck you, Savage Beastfly. Finally killing this thing gave me such a high, bro. I can't even exaggerate how good it felt to finally be done with this fucker. Goodbye and good riddance. Okay, guys, I think we can agree that it's time for something a little more relaxing. Let's do something nice and fun that doesn't involve boss fights. Okay, in all seriousness, compared to what I just did and what I'm about to do, the Cogwork Core actually is relaxing. Just in general, I found all of the platforming focused sections in Silksong way easier than most of the stuff in Hollow Knight. Mount Faye, the Cogwork Core, even the platforming section that leads to the hidden village on the surface. None of it was really challenging or frustrating to complete. The Path of Pain is leagues above anything in Silksong, but you don't even have to go that far. I'd just say the normal White Palace sequence in Hollow Knight is harder than anything in Silksong. I wonder if that would be considered an unpopular opinion. Well, let me know if you guys agree or disagree in the comments below. And to be clear, I am not complaining or anything. I actually really like the depth of movement the claw line adds in Silksong, and I enjoyed the platforming in this game a lot. I also really look forward to seeing if Team Cherry adds a Path of Pain equivalent in a potential Silksong DLC. With the Cogwork Core and the Zelda puzzle at the top of the core completed, we now have 2 of the 3 pieces of the threefold melody collected. Feeling inspired after completing a Zelda puzzle in Silksong, I decided to pay a visit to the Royal Mergwyn and start the Zelda side quest in Silksong. Okay, yeah, I lied when I said no more Zelda references, but so what? Can you blame me? All of Act 2 is basically The Legend of Zelda in Silksong, and I love it, okay? Jeez. Well, considering what I'm about to do, it probably would have been smart to not just accept the quest, but to actually do it and get the nail upgrade. Oh well. Yep, it's that time, the High Halls Gauntlet. Okay, it's actually almost that time. Let me show you something cool first, trust. Did you know you can actually permanently remove those annoying silk stealing enemies in Act 2? Yes, those annoying enemies, and yes, I said permanently remove. I didn't know this until some chatters pointed it out to me while I was playing this run live, but if you come into this room in the High Halls, right above and to the left of the room with the Ventrica station, you can use this cart to get to this hidden room. There are a few enemies in this room, but you don't actually need to fight them. Just bring this cart to this spot and jump again to this part of the ceiling, break this clump of silk, and bam! Just like that, the Claw Maidens will no longer spawn anywhere in Act 2. And that includes the High Halls Gauntlet, so that should help at least a little bit with making that a little easier.
We call this foreshadowing.
For real though, shout out Stream Chat for showing me this during the playthrough. Quick plug for the stream, if you didn't already know, I do live stream this challenge run, and I will be doing more challenge runs in the future. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on just about every platform, and that includes right here on YouTube. You can find all the links to all of my other channels down in the description. But yeah, this trick with getting rid of the Claw Maidens is just another example of just how many insanely cool secrets Silksong has. And if this video is the reason you learn about this secret, then you have to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's only fair. Okay, I don't think I can stall anymore. It's finally time for the High Halls Gauntlet. Here we go. 11 waves back to back containing some of the toughest enemies thus far in the game, with them coming out in combinations that will make you want to rip your hair out. Capping it off with the final wave containing 2 very tanky, double damage mini bosses. This is easily the toughest challenge in the run so far. Yes, including the Savage Beastfly refight.
We live in a simulation. I'm just dead. Nope.
That fell!
I know you guys saw him switching directions just then.
No! 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 Let's go wave by wave and break it down. The first wave really isn't that bad. Any flying enemy is annoying for this challenge, including this guy, but in this wave, it's only one of them. The small dude can get a hit off every once in a while, but is usually pretty easy to deal with. And same with the chorister, although watch out for his double damage AoE attack. Wave 2 also isn't bad. There are less enemies than Wave 1, but still, remember these guys can deal double damage, so it's important to not mess up here and take too much damage. Wave 3 is where it starts to get tricky. 2 flying enemies with ranged attacks and flight patterns that make it very hard to land hits on them. The bell throwing enemy especially really loves to dash away right before I can land a hit, which makes him very annoying. It's still early in the gauntlet though, and there's only 2 enemies total in this wave. Wave 4 is another round of 2 flying enemies, but these guys are nowhere near as bad as the other types of flying enemies in the gauntlet. They can also deal double damage with one of their attacks, but their flight pattern and bigger hitbox makes them much easier to deal with, so they aren't anywhere near as bad. Ooh, Wave 5. It's the worst one, I think, so it's nice that at least it's one of the earlier ones. The Maestro enemy is the most annoying of all in this challenge, and Wave 5 has 2 of them. It's basically impossible to fight these guys without taking damage in the Pogo only challenge. This is because the cog flies that orbit them, which will fly into Hornet since I need to be above the Maestro in order to hit it. You also can't just go slow and try taking out the cog flies first either, since the Maestro can just re-summon them in. The best strategy I found was to position myself ahead of time to be directly above where one of them will spawn, and immediately take it out with the Delver's Drill. It does enough damage that 2 uses of it, or 1 use and a few needle hits, will take one out. This is more of a kamikaze strategy though, so I use the Lifeblood File and just tank the damage. When 1 remains, it's still kind of impossible to take it down without getting hit, but it's at least not as bad as dealing with 2, so I can just take my time and try to kill it carefully. Or just use the drill again. Wave 6 is really not that bad. I still need to be careful since these dudes always deal double damage, but they are slow and easy enough to dodge. And since there's only 1 of them, as long as I'm locked in, I can usually just use him to farm silk and refresh my tools. Wave 7 is another stinker. 3 flying enemies in a formation that can be seriously hard to break through. I swear to God, sometimes it feels like these dudes aren't following an enemy AI, but are actually controlled by a professional esports team with the amount of coordination and teamwork they have. Having a full silk bar from the previous wave is very nice to get through this wave with as much health as possible. Yet another stinker for wave 8, 2 of the flying bell thrower dudes. They can be managed relatively easily if you keep them close together so their projectiles are easier to predict and dodge, and grouping them up against the corner so they can't fly away is ideal. Wave 9 is similar to wave 4, but with a bell thrower added to the mix. Just 1 isn't too annoying thankfully, and once he's out of the way, it's just a standard wave. Wave 10. Wow. This wave, while probably not as hard as wave 5 since it only has 1 of the Maestro enemies, feels a lot harder since it's so late into the challenge. The pressure is really built up by this point, as dying here sends me all the way back to wave 1. Wave 11. The final wave and arguably the most dangerous. 2 of these mini-boss enemies at once makes it more than twice as hard as wave 6. I really don't have anything to say here. They're tough enemies. drifting. Yes! Oh, first try, baby, on the comeback, bro. First try. I really thought I wasn't gonna make it out of that one. With how I took so much damage so fast, it felt like I did a full half of that fight at 1 health. Now, let me tell you something. What made this feel so good is that this was actually my first attempt of the session. I ran out of time on the last stream and had to end the stream before I could beat the gauntlet. This successful attempt was a few days later on the next stream. It was the very first thing that I did in that stream, and I got it on my first try. Now that I've waited long enough to farm any commenters that would have asked this question instead of addressing it at the beginning, yes, I almost certainly made this gauntlet way harder than it needed to be by using the Architect's Crest the whole time. The Hunter probably would have been a lot easier to use, and it wouldn't have taken the almost 2 hours of attempts I spent on the fight. But I'm stubborn, okay? I wanted to use the Architect's Crest for the gauntlet, so I did. But from this point, I am pretty satisfied, and I do end up switching between the two and going back to the Hunter's Crest whenever I feel like it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. With the High Halls gauntlet completed, I can finally collect the final part of the song for the threefold melody and access the cradle, which we'll have to wait until next time. Seriously, the video for Act 2 ended up being massive. Even the script alone is over twice the size of the Act 1 video, so it just makes sense to split it into 2 parts. This way, I'll be able to get this video out way faster, and the Act 2 video won't be twice as long as the videos for Act 1 and 3, so it just makes sense to do it this way. Now to address the elephant in the room. Holy shit! Are you guys fucking insane? Do you know how crazy it is for someone with 400 subscribers to check their video a day later and see it's almost at 10,000 views? And then watch over the next few days as it gets to over 30,000? I mentioned at the end of my last video that my first big goal for this channel is to make it to 1,000 subscribers, and that's still the goal, at least as of writing. So it would be awesome if you could leave a like on the video and sub to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Seriously, I've already doubled my subscribers since the last video, so we are so close, and I have a lot more Silksong content planned for the future, so stay tuned. One last thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.